Hello boys and welcome back to another video. It's good to see you and it's great to have you. Today we're going to be covering the best, the most bestest, the funnest build for the Sentinel. This is my Warpath Echo Void Knight build and it's an absolute beast. Okay, it slices enemies to pieces, blasts through monoliths, and literally melts bosses off the face of the earth. So it's a build that you're going to be very comfortable with league starting. And actually, just for a sort of, I don't know, like an ego measure, I have actually got into the top like 29, I think, here with the Void Knight build that I'm using. Practically, I think I'm the only Void Knight using Warpath with this one. And I started a day late. I actually completely missed the first day and I'm somehow in the top 25. I'm ranked 25 exactly here. So that's absolutely wild. This is blasting. We are getting through the levels and having no problems with bosses or anything like this. And it's hardcore. So obviously this build is very, very, very tanky. Let's start by going through the skills, what we do with them, then we'll break down the talent trees and the gear thereafter, and you know, of course, the idols and the blessings. But do bear in mind, this is build incomplete, still leveling, still getting to the end game. I'll update the build planner and possibly even do new videos as the build evolves with time. So let's look at the build. We'll just go across the bar from left to right. Now, we have Sigils of Hope, and the main purpose of this is to help with damage output. You're seeing the skill tree with that, but it's basically a self buff. The same goes for Anomaly as well. We're using this to apply a buff to ourselves. We're not actively using these things in combat. We do have Volatile Reversal. This has two use cases. This is both a way to restore all of our mana when we spam sigils, because these use a ton of mana, but also as a death save. So if you ever take a ton of damage, boom, hit Volatile Reversal and you like revert back to your state a couple of seconds ago, and that can, you know, hopefully be you at full HP. That's how you're supposed to use it. And then we have Lunge, and Lunge is fantastic because it's both an immunity as well as a traversal skill with the most insane range ever. You fucking fly across the map when you use this, so it's very, very good for speeding things up, but mostly a valuable immunity which can come in very, very clutch during boss fights. And of course we've got Warpath. This is our main ability, the thing that we will be doing most of the time. Now, we'll quickly take a look at our passives here. So nice and simple for the base tree in the Sentinel. We have the Vitality, the Strength and Resistances here, and the Armor and Damage Reduction. Ideally, in the early game, we're just trying to not be dead. If you are not playing on hardcore, then, you know, maybe you could go for the melee physical damage early on, but we are converting to Void, so you won't want this in the end game. I would recommend this for softcore as well. Then immediately after hitting the Mastery unlock, I actually went straight for 15 points in Paladin, so that I could use Sigils of Hope. And also, you know, Healing Hands in the early is a very, very good ability for keeping yourself up if you don't like being dead, which, I mean, most people like being alive, right? And in this one, we've gone for the Elemental Resistance. I think this is just a solid pick right off rip. And then we've got the Melee Ignite Chance. Now, the reason we're going for Ignite Chance is that we convert this into Time Rot, and you'll see more about what that means in just a second if you're not familiar with what that is. I'll talk about that in just a mo. Then in the Void Knight tree, nice and easy, we are just boosting our damage here with a ton of Void and melee Void damage. Can't go wrong with that. We then have a lot of Leech here. This is our main source of sustain, so very important to pick this up. Otherwise, we're not really going to have any way to heal or keep ourselves alive, especially as we get later into the game. We've then got Strength and Health. Again, this may be more of a hardcore pick than anything else, but definitely Strength is useful for everybody, and 40 life is nothing to sniff at either. We will have Void Corruption later on in the game, but right now getting access to crit chance is very, very difficult with the gear that I've got, so I'm not using it and I'm not having a problem. But that will definitely be an evolution of this build once we get some really high-end gear. We then have Finality here for mostly the melee kill threshold. This is really, really good. Anytime an enemy gets to 10% health, they just get executed. This includes bosses as well. So this is massive. It just saves you that whole last part of the fight. We then have here Woe, giving us a bunch of on-kill benefits. By default, we get an increased melee damage boost. And then we've got the Void and the armor on kill, which very much helps with the sustain. Like, my armor is absolutely nuts with this build. It's a big part of why I don't die ever. And then we've got Eternal Form here. You got Vitality, you've got increased health. Really valuable, really nice passive, this one. And of course, because this is an echo focused build, we have a ton of echo chance here. We've also got a ton of echo chance here and here. Like, we're boosting it as much as possible because this is where a lot of the damage is going to be coming from, and a lot of the cool synergy of this build is coming from. And then finally here, I'm going into Dread to pick up some movement speed and void damage, because I prefer just to spin out of mechanics as opposed to try and roll out of them or try and use a mobility skill out of them. So movement speed for me, surviving, and just general clear time is really important. So that is the passive tree. Now let's actually go into the skills themselves, and our choices will start to make a little bit more sense here. So we're going to start with Warpath itself, and we'll talk about the most important stuff in terms of when you're leveling, like what route I would go. I would take the mana cost first, not this one, absolutely not this one, but I'd take the mana cost first, and then get this one later in the game when you actually have the 30 resistance to lose, right? Don't put yourself into like the negatives. You'll get absolutely fucking slapped. So that's not a good idea. After that, juicing the void damage so you can get into Echo Knight is huge. This actually is what allows the ability to echo at all. So without this node, you cannot do those. So you want to pick this up very shortly after you get the Void Knight passive, mastery passives. So before then, you actually don't want to get this. You'll probably be better off just like, you know, increasing the mana efficiency, maybe go for some area, go for some flat damage, and then spec into this after you hit the mastery. And then going down into Time Rot chance here. And this is huge. This is why we have Ignite over in the Paladin tree, because Time Rot is applied by the chance to bleed or chance to ignite. I worded that weird, but I think you understand. Like, your Ignite chance is converted into Time Rot chance, and Time Rot is a pretty decent damage over time debuff, but the main reason I'm using it is because it allows me to scale my DPS per stack up to 12, and it's 15% multiplicative. So that's a pretty big damage boost, and you stack it really fast. And then other than that, we've got the area, we've got the flat damage and the area again, with also 1 point here into movement speed, because I didn't need it in mana, but you could put it into mana or area. Depends. Like I said, though, I value the movement speed quite a bit, so I'm using that. Then we have Volatile Reversal. Now, this again, like I said, is primarily a death save as well as a way to restore mana after spamming sigils, because getting your sigil stacks up, you can have up to 4. That will basically you, so you will need a way to get your mana back fast. This is that. However, you do also get a 36% movement speed and also an attack speed bonus after using it for a short period of time, which is really good if you're using it in combat. You then also get like a stun chance from it as well, and it does do a fair bit of damage itself. As you can see here, it's got some damage boosting. There you go. Global void damage versus stunned as well is fantastic, because we stun a lot in this build. In terms of importance, really, it's just getting the cooldown reduction on it. That's going to be the main thing. And then I would probably just go from like left to right, because you're not going to be stunning enemies super regularly. But I mean, if you've already got a mace, maybe just go into this here and then go straight into shifting power. But it's more of a utility for its core purpose than, you know, these things here outside of this for end game. So the leveling order is not super important. We then have Sigils of Hope. Now, these are really cool. So until you get this node here, this actually boosts your health regen a ton. So in the early game, that can really help keep you alive. So what I did is I actually leveled it to the right, which gave me more duration and gave me an extra sigil, which really helped with that. Like, that life regen was coming in clutch in the early levels. And then as I went into the late game, you get the damage bonus. You get the chance to summon a sigil on kill as well. This is huge. You also have fire damage per sigil, but you convert that immediately into void damage, which then turns off the health regen. So that's an important thing to know. This all goes into void, but you no longer get the heal, so it becomes a pure offense utility rather than a defense. And then we have some more ignite chance. So this plus the ignite chance in the paladin tree is like 100% chance to ignite. So that's basically all that we need to apply our time rot really effectively. So that's all that taken care of. We then have here anomaly. Now, anomaly is again something that we're using just to buff ourselves, and the way that we're doing that is by, first of all, I mean, I like taking immediacy here to make all of the effects trigger instantly. And then we go down through here. We got time rot, applies time rot to an enemy when we hit them with it. And then we've got time bubble. And time bubble is a buff, or like an area that applies a buff to anybody within it, but you can actually get it to follow you around with this next node over here. So it's cast on you and it will follow you around. And what you get from that is increased crit chance. You also get, there's duration increase on it there. You also get some really nice life leech, as well as some attack speed while it's active. So it's a big DPS and survival boost for you while it's up. You're just kind of casting this on cooldown. And again, that bubble will just kind of follow you around. But it does also have some offense, like sort of value to it. It does apply some rot chance to enemies. And I think it does also do a little bit of damage, but it's not something that I really would worry too much about. It's mainly just for that buff on your character. And then finally we have lunge, which is our mobility. There's not really much to say about it. It's, you know, we're going for the cooldown reduction. We do have like a bunch of healing on it as well, which is quite nice if you do if you do use it while you're on low health to like get out of shit creek, like you will also heal quite a bit, which can be really clutch. But invulnerability while lunging is the main feature for me here. So if you're in a mechanic and you know you're about to eat dirt, then one thing that you can do to absolutely outplay the fuck out of a boss is just dash to them or dash to another enemy in the arena during a mechanic or something like that. And that invulnerability window may just save your life. And I've done that. So I've done that to save my life. It's come in clutch. 100% very, 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 very good to use. Now you can use Void Cleave, but you need to use a like slashing weapon for that, like a sword or an axe. I'm using a mace. But yeah, I mean, this is very, very good. I would probably keep this just for this alone because it saved my life. And it sounds so dramatic, but that is really, really important for me. Okay, I had to leave my desk there just for a second. So we've got a weird cut here. But now let's start taking a look at the gear. Now, because we're leveling, a lot of the gear is going to follow some very similar rules. So I'll talk about like the general focus of what you want on your gear and then a few specific things afterwards, because as you can see, there's no uniques or legendaries or anything like that here. So there's not that much hyper specific stuff that we're looking for. So for the most part, you're going to want to hit vitality and strength on every piece of gear where there is space to hit those stats. Then as far as the things regarding your resistances go, yes, your resistances are a priority, but I can't tell you exactly what to put where. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You need to try and fit in the parts that you are missing with the gear that you have. So there's going to be a bit of mishmashing around. One thing that does really help with this spec specifically is actually the 20% to all resist while channeling. This can help a whole bunch. Like it really, really, really does help a whole bunch. And it also helps offset something from the Warpath skill tree Reckless Spin, which gives you -30 to elemental resistances. That's something you don't want to take until late into the game, because when you spin, you don't want to be in a situation where you have subpar like resistances. So make sure you have that 30 to lose, and this goes a long way to helping do that. Don't forget as well to use your idols to fill in your resistances where they are weakest, because that will also help a whole bunch. After that, I decided to stack armor and max HP as much as humanly possible, and that is done really, really, really well. You can see I've not really gone into any block chance. I don't have any parry or block or anything like that. Stun avoidance you don't need because we are using Warpath and it makes you stun immune. A few things that I would be very, very mindful to keep an eye out for. Ranks to Warpath. This is something you should have in your loot filter. Very, very powerful. Definitely want this on your chest piece. Don't forget to also try and include some form of crit avoidance. Now, I'm using implicits, meaning like the base item stats, like this helmet here that has 75% reduced damage from critical strikes on it as baseline. And the same with my boots. So my boots and my helmet together equal, crit immunity, which is fantastic. If you're not far enough into the game to get this gear, then what you're going to want to do is try and have the stat itself on your items in place of health or regular armor, because you can get armor and crit damage reduction as a hybrid stat, or you can just get straight up crit avoidance. The choice is yours. I prefer armor and crit damage taken reduction. That's my recommendation. And other than that, things that I've obviously really liked on this one, I've spoke about it, is the stun chance from the mace. This is huge. It helps a lot. It allows you to literally lock bosses out until they die. They'll just sit there stunned until they're gone. And the ways that you can do this are by having stun chance on your weapon. Most maces will have some form of it, and then also having it as an affix rolled on there as well. I've been loving this. I've been really enjoying stun chance. It's been helping a lot keep me alive. As for stats on the weapon, this is the most important ones. I will talk about this specifically. Attack speed is great. As far as I can tell, it does help with the echo spawn rate. I may be wrong on that one, but definitely getting the impression that it is. However, as far as DPS goes, it is giving me the biggest amount of DPS boost anyway. So even if I'm wrong, I'm still right in the other regard. I wouldn't have void damage. Melee void damage would be preferential here, and shred armor absolutely, because you're going to want to try and get that damage reduction off the enemies as much as possible. Other things that you may want to work into your gear are frailty, for example. Now, frailty I have down here as an affix that's sealed. You don't need a huge amount of it because it only goes up to 3 stacks, but it reduces the damage that enemies do that you apply it to. So definitely try to work this into your gear somewhere. Also, movement speed, if you can. I really like movement speed with Warpath because, as I mentioned earlier, I prefer to move out of mechanics with Warpath itself rather than relying on the dodge or anything like that. And then also trying to get as much area as you can is huge, because Warpath has quite a small range. Having larger area of effect with it allows you to stay further away from dangerous enemies, which is a huge survivability boon. And other than that, you're just going to stack your damage through 3 stats, basically. Strength, and then through void damage, and then also through like damage while channeling. And on the weapon, I mean, attack speed, of course, again, void melee damage. But, if it has the word void in it or strength, it's good. All right, so you go for that. One unique I am using is the new crab ring. This is actually an insane ring. I've been loving it. Gives you a whole bunch of movement speed. You get 10% plus 0.1% for each level, or 1% for every 10 levels. And this allows you to move like an absolute lightning bolt, and it also gives you a lot of armor and all stats. So I've been using this the whole time. You can see I've empowered mine with all resist, elemental resist, which has really juiced it to godly amounts. Now, most of what I've just said rings true for the idols as well. Try and hit your resistances as you need them. After that, armor, health, right? And then once you're tanky enough, one thing that I've been doing is juicing my echo damage. Ultimately, I'd like to have 2 of these in here, because then your echoes, as they spawn, will absolutely fucking melt enemies off the face of the earth. It's extremely good DPS, and I've been surprised by just how effective that is. Like, my echoes do way more damage than I do, and it really tells. Once they come up, things just disappear. So I would try and get 2 of these in. That's my ultimate end goal. Other than that, again, the rest remains true. But I will be evolving this build as time goes on, as my gear gets better and I get some of the new uniques. I will put those in, and the build planner may be different from what you're seeing. If it is, check my channel. There may be an updated video sort of going over what the changes are, what the new build is like. And finally, blessings. Blessings, again, much of the same stuff. You get the XP one from the first one. This thing is insane. And then most of the other stuff, it's going to be the same logic. Get the resistances that you need. Get all the resistances, because that means you won't have to use it in your gear. Any health or armor that you see is cash money. And then also anything that gives you like void damage, void shred as well. Insane for your DPS. Definitely want to try and get that. I haven't hit it yet. And then, again, armor while channeling, armor health, stuff like that is really good. And that is about it. That's all it is. That's nice and easy. Bing, bang, bosh, and there she is. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a like. Consider subscribing for ARPG build guide, stuff like that. I really hope you enjoy this build. I'll be pushing it through, trying to get into maybe the top 10. We'll see. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Jump into the stream sometime. Links to everything down in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Love ya. Bye.